new show, Ancient Apocalypse. Is that what it's called? I wrote 59 pages of notes and didn't double check the name. Graham Hancock, in his latest Netflix show, continues to argue for the existence of a lost, advanced civilization at some point in the Ice Age. Yet, as anyone will know who watched the show, 99% of archaeologists reject these ideas. Today,
I never, ever claim to be a scientist or an archaeologist. And therefore I don't see, I don't see how I can be a false one. I'm a journalist, and I'm a true journalist. And that's what I do. But it's a very easy way to dismiss interest in my work. Of course, this idea is upsetting to the so-called experts, who insist that the only humans who existed during the Ice Age were simple hunter-gatherers. That automatically makes me enemy number one to archaeologists.
Why not just say, we don't know? This is a spectacular mystery and leave it at that.
It's my job to offer an alternative point of view. Perhaps there's been a forgotten episode in human history, but perhaps the extremely defensive, arrogant and patronizing attitude of mainstream academia is stopping us from considering that possibility and trying to overthrow the paradigm of history.
Yes, this is another episode of Hot Boxing. I'm Mike Tyson.
This is Sebastian Joseph Day. We have here Graham Hancock.
Yes.
Hi, and I'm Graham Hancock, and it's nice to be with you guys.
We're all here. We're on ears. We're talking about the ancient apocalypse. You have people talking.
Yeah.
A lot of people talking.
Well, that's my new TV series on Netflix.
I viewed it before I came here. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
I viewed it.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah, it's getting it's quite hot.
This is what I wanted to know. Archaeologists, that's the word?
Archaeologists. Yes.
Archaeologists. How can they tell something a tree is 10,000 years old?
Okay, so there's the most commonly used dating method is carbon dating, and particularly radiocarbon. And what happens after an organism dies is that the amount of carbon in its remains reduce at a steady rate. So anything over than 50,000 years old is no use for carbon dating. But anything up to 50,000 years old, they can say how old that piece of, and it only works on organic material. So
how did they say Lucy is 3 million years old?
Well, that's based more on there's no direct objective dating apart from looking at the stratum of the earth in which she was dug up. It's more based on notions about the evolution of the human species, and Lucy was supposedly our first upright walking ancestor.
Erectus.
And then there's Homo erectus, which is a fascinating creature. They were big. They were about 6 feet tall. They roamed all over the earth. They sailed. They got to remote islands, and we're talking anything from 300,000, 400, maybe even 500, 600,000 years ago, down to relatively quite recently. They probably go back a million years. Homo erectus, erect man. Or upright man.
Not erected, but it's
Which is,
erected.
I think in that name they managed to sort of tune into something fundamental about the human species. But anyway, there was
How
erect
long do you
man.
think we were on our knees before we got erectus?
Say again.
How long do you think we were on our knees before we became erectus?
Oh, we were not on our knees. We were not on our knees before Erectus. They were already upright walking creatures. Lucy was an upright walking creature. Let's say Erectus goes back a million years. Lucy goes back 3 million years. The last common ancestor with the chimpanzee, if you accept the general view of evolution, is about 6 million years ago. So there was a divergence, and one line led towards human beings, and the other line led into the great apes.
I don't know. That's too complex for me to even believe or not to believe.
Well, it's the story that's told. I think the
So
thing to
you're telling
understand
me
is
that-
a lot about prehistory and the deep and remote past is it is a narrative where people are doing their best with very limited material to reconstruct the story of our past.
I just think people just want to believe they know everything, but we know nothing.
I think that's the best position to take, is that we know nothing, and anything we find out is likely to only be true for a while, and then something else will be found out which replaces it. Everything shifts and changes. Nothing is fixed in one place, and that's particularly true of the human past. Is that we keep on extending it back in time. So okay, there was Lucy. There was Homo erectus. Then you have the first anatomically modern humans, and that have so far been found. And the first anatomically modern humans that have been found are from Ethiopia, 196,000 years old, and from Morocco, about 300,000 years old. So these are creatures which looked exactly like us, had the same size of brain, so far as we know, had all the capacities and abilities that we have, and they've been around. Anatomically modern humans have been around on the planet for at least 300,000 years, judging from the Moroccan evidence. And then you've got these other creatures, the so-called Denisovans, named after a particular cave in Siberia, and the Neanderthals, who've had a bad rap generally down the ages. The word Neanderthal is used as an insult, but it's become clear now that the Neanderthals were not stupid. They were intelligent. They were sensitive. They did art. They may well have taught the ancestors of anatomically modern humans how to do art, how to do the great cave art that we find in many different
In
countries.
France,
For example,
That's
but
incredible.
again, all over the world, also South Africa, there's fantastically ancient rock and cave art in South Africa as well. So we have a very complicated story. We have lots of relatives. We have the Neanderthals, we have the Denisovans, we have anatomically modern humans, who and everybody's mixed together, and people carry Neanderthal genes and Denisovan genes today, and we're a hybrid species. That's fundamentally what we are.
established titles is a fun way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland.
It is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, or lords and ladies in English. Title packs give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land.
Established titles plant a tree with every order and work with global charities. 1 tree planted and trees for the future to support global reforestation efforts.
Cool perks are you could officially change your prefix of your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit card, plane, tickets, or whatever you want. They even have couple packs that come with adjoining plots of land.
Who, the first 200 people purchasing title packs using our link will effectively be next to our plot within a few minutes of walking.
Established Titles makes an amazing last minute gift, and they are actually running a Black Friday sale, their biggest sale of the year. Plus, if you use the code HOTBOXING, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/hotboxing to get your gifts now and help support the channel.
Again, that's establishedtitles.com/hotboxing for your additional 10% off. Kamikoto make great high-quality Japanese steel kitchen knives using traditional technology from Japan.
Kamikoto only uses steel sourced from mills in Japan. Each blade is crafted using techniques that each been honed and perfected by generations of knifesmiths. Each Kamikoto knives goes through a rigorous 19-step process that takes several years from start to finish to complete. Each knife is individually inspected and comes with a lifetime guarantee.
Each knife comes in a heavy-duty ashwood box. This makes Kamikoto a great gift because of the wooden box the knives are presented in.
The product range features a vast array of Japanese steel knives, such as a 3-piece Genpeki knife set, which includes a Nakiri vegetable knife, which is 7 inches long, the slicing knife, which is 8.5 inches long, and the utility knife, which is 5 inches long. The Kamikoto Senteku blade is 7 inches long. All the blades and the handles have satin finish for a subtle yet stunning luster.
Because of their single bevel edge, Kamikoto knives can achieve an unbelievable sharp edge. You just can't get one with other knives. They cut through your steak like butter.
You can maintain the edge of your blades with the Kamikoto sharpening whetstones. Kamikoto knives are used by several chefs working at Michelin star restaurants all over the world. Kamikoto is now running a Black Friday sale and is offering our viewers an extra $50 off on any purchase with a discount code HOTBOXING. On top of a special offers, go to kamikoto.com/hotboxing to get your knife set.
That's kamikoto.com/hotboxing for extra $50 off any purchase.
I think the most interesting thing that caught my eye in that documentary was when you were on that island in between Italy and
Malta.
Malta, and Giganta.
Gigantea, yeah, Gigantea is what used to be thought to be the oldest, what they call megalithic structure. So when they say megalithic, they literally means big stones, and it's you have blocks of stone that weigh 100 tons in there. And it is literally a giant thing, and the tradition is that it was built by giants.
Yeah.
But it turns out it's not the oldest structure. It used to be for really a long time. Gigantea was thought to be the oldest megalithic structure on Earth. That it was thought to be 6,000 years old, and then suddenly we find Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is 11,500 years old, 11,600 years old, which just pushes the timeline back 5,000 years to when human beings were capable of organizing themselves and mobilizing the necessary skills in order to create these fantastic works of architecture. There are pillars at Göbekli Tepe. We're looking at some there in the previous slide. That one, those go left. Those two pillars there weigh about 20 tons each. And they're in what's called Enclosure D in Göbekli Tepe, and that's the oldest enclosure that's so far been excavated, and it dates to 11,600 years old. The thing is that there's many other enclosures in Göbekli Tepe that have not been excavated. They're still under the ground. We know they're there. We'll pause on that slide because I have something to say about it. We know that they're there because of ground-penetrating radar. You can look beneath the earth and you can see what's down there without actually getting in and actually digging it up. And these kind of enclosures that we're seeing excavated here, there's dozens more of them under the ground in Göbekli Tepe awaiting excavation. That pillar is in that same very ancient enclosure, enclosure D. It's pillar number
They
43.
couldn't find the burial chambers down there?
They've not
Were they
found anybody
buried
buried there. Not at all. Although there does seem to have been some kind of cult of death. Many of these places are associated with the mystery of death. And this is a question that every human being asks herself or himself: what happens to me when I die? And that's a question that our ancestors were
That's what
asking.
Gilgamesh story was all about.
All about death, yeah.
First book ever written was about fear of death.
Yeah, fear of death. It's just a fundamental human characteristic. And some ancient cultures, like this one, like the ancient Egyptians, explored that mystery and began to ask themselves the question, well, actually, what does happen? Does the light just go out and there's nothing left of our consciousness, or does consciousness survive death?
Evolve.
And the ancient Egyptians were sure that consciousness survives death and that physical life is the opportunity to evolve our consciousness. I mean, in the ancient Egyptian system, it's rather eerie. There's a judgment scene. I guess we know where the Christians got the idea of the Day of Judgment from. There's the soul is brought into a chamber which is called the Hall of Ma'at. The goddess Ma'at was the goddess of truth and justice and cosmic harmony. The god Osiris sits at the end of that hall, and it's the judgment hall. And the soul is brought in there, and then symbolically, the soul of the individual, represented as that individual's heart, is weighed in the scales against the feather of truth and harmony and cosmic justice. And the question is, you were given the extraordinary opportunity of life in a human body. What did you do with it?
Yeah,
Did you use it, or did you waste it?
So the heart and the opposite is essentially sin, right? Or what the Christians would look at as
They would
sin.
probably look at it as sin, and but the scene is complicated because around the walls of the chamber sit 42. They're called the 42 negative assessors, and they ask the deceased 42 questions, and they're all to do with moral behavior, ideally you should be able to answer no to them, every one of them. Although I've yet to meet the human being who could answer no to every single moral lapse. But then there's another issue, which is this issue of the precious gift of life, and what did you do with it? And it seems to me that is fundamentally what's being tested. We're giving an opportunity to live this rich and full life in a human body, to be faced with challenges, to be faced with choices. What choices do we make? Our choices define us. Adversity. I honestly believe that consciousness is one of the fundamental aspects of the universe, that it's not limited to bodies, but that it can immerse itself in bodies. And I think we're in a kind of, I can't prove this, but going with the ancient Egyptian view, that we're in a kind of theater of experience here, where we have the opportunity to learn and to grow and develop, and not all of us take that opportunity. You know, many lives are wasted, and our society invests a lot in encouraging people to waste their lives just to pursue goods and services, just to define ourselves by how much we own and how much money we make and the possessions that we surround ourselves with. And all of this is completely, it may be nice, but it's completely fucking trivial. There's nothing lasting about it. It all just fades away, and it's gone. So did we get something meaningful and useful out of the life we live? And I think that is the opportunity we're given, is to make mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes, but do we learn from those mistakes? Do we integrate them into our behavior?
Unlock your confidence with the Performance Package 4.0. Inside, you'll find the holy grail of men's grooming items.
Michael Myers sure is scary, but the last thing you need is to be hairy this Halloween. Luckily, our friends at Manscaped launched their 4th generation performance package to make sure your pumpkins get the ultimate carving experience on this spooky day. Ugh.
Unlock your confidence with the Performance Package 4.0. Inside, you'll find the holy grail of men grooming items.
It's a full moon out there, or should I say it's a full moon out, and the werewolf in your pants is howling. Ooh! It's time to tackle that problem with the lawnmower 4.0. That's my lawnmower sound. Their finely tuned Pube products feature a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. Thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology, the Lawnmower 4.0 is easily the greatest ball trimmer, on the planet. Oh, did I mention this trimmer is waterproof too, Mike? Wow, this trimmer is a shower essential, buddy.
Wow. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes a weed whacker, a nose and ear hair trimmer that provides proprietary skin-safe technology that helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs.
Seal the deal with Manscaped's liquid formulations. Their crop preserver ball deodorant and crop reviver ball toner will make sure your pumpkin stays fresh. Trust me when I say this, fellas, your balls will be thankful. Also, if you're looking like Wolverine and haven't cut your nails recently, be sure to look into the Shears 2.0 nail kit.
Manscaped also launched their new Body Buffer, 100% antibacterial body scrubber.
Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped boxes and the Shed travel bag. Bring your comfort and boxes to another level.
Get 20% off free shipping with the code HOTBOXING at manscaped.com.
Again, that's 20% off plus free shipping with the code HOTBOXING at manscaped.com. Say trick or treat to your beautiful new Halloweeny with Manscaped.
So that's pillar 43. And it so happens that the creatures upon it, colleagues of mine have worked very, very hard on this, and they seem to be constellation diagrams. And they show that disk in the middle on the wing of the vulture represents the sun, and the vulture represents the constellation that we call Sagittarius. This defines a date. This actually, combination of the sun and Sagittarius and the surrounding constellations only occurs twice in 26,000 years. And this defines the date of around 12,800 years ago, which is about 1,000 years before Göbekli Tepe was built. But for some reason, it was very important to them.
Do you think these people understood time?
Understood time? Yes, I think they did. I think anything that we can understand, they understood.
I would believe they tell time different than we do.
It's interesting that around the world, the division of the day into hours, into 24 hours, and into minutes and into seconds is pretty universal.
Well, listen, before Jesus was, how did Alexander the Great tell his age? How did he know he was 32?
Well, because a year passes, and you're one, and another
that's
year
not
passes.
true.
No? Okay.
Because 365 days out of the year wasn't born until Julius Caesar was in place.
Yeah.
He said 365 days would be a year.
Yeah.
So before Julius Caesar was born, how did we tell how old we were?
Well, there are certain regularities. There's the two solstices. The day when the sun rises furthest north of east. The sun makes a sort of pendulum swing along the horizon. At the equinox, it's rising perfectly due east. If you're at the winter solstice, it's rising as far south of east as it can possibly rise. At the summer solstice, it's rising as far north of east as it can possibly rise if you're in the northern hemisphere. So the celestial surroundings actually do provide a time marker, and the number of days between one winter solstice and another winter solstice is 365 and a quarter days. So Julius Caesar may have codified that, he may have recognized it, but it's actually defined by the universe and the solar system in which we live. It is 365 and a quarter days from one winter solstice to another.
300 years before Christ was the same thing.
I'm saying it was the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely the same thing. I don't think the length of the day or the notion that there were 365 days in the year has changed, because that is a fact of our environment. It's something that human beings can recognize, and they can put it in, they can formalize it. And Julius Caesar certainly did that, and he codified a calendar based on that. But it's based on observations of the heavens.
Another thing about this documentary that I loved is how you highlighted the fact that these people were just as smart
Just as smart
just
as
as smart
us.
as us now. Do you believe that there were giant people back then? Because some of these buildings are massive. Like, how in the world could that?
And many of the traditions around the world speak of giants being involved in the creation of these buildings. I don't go with that 100%, and part of the reason is that I'm not fundamentally interested in giant people
Okay.
unless they have giant intellects.
Yeah.
Unless they have giant hearts, unless they have giant souls.
White giant.
If they're just big lumps of meat
Oh, yeah.
with no heart and no soul,
Yeah.
then who gives a fuck? You know,
No,
they're pretty boring. And I'm more when I see these traditions that speak of giants from the ancient past, I think they're
There's
talking
more
about
than-
intellectual giants. There are some very large human remains, up to 7-8 feet tall.
Yeah, those are there's some Europeans found in China.
Yeah. Because Cholula, they were saying that giants. I remember
The story of Cholula is that it was built by giants.
giants.
yeah.
That was built by giants.
And the story of Gigantea is
Yeah,
that it was built by giants. But in later times, that would be the kind of conclusion you would come to when you look at it. And there's no doubt, if you look at the brilliance of the work and the architecture and the achievement, that giant intellects were at work.
Caucasian giants found a giant.
I'm yet to be excited by the mere fact of physical giants. Yes, they existed. Maybe they did stuff, but if what they did wasn't interesting,
I don't
I'm
think
not
they
that
last
thrilled.
on the legs. They couldn't move fast, probably.
Yeah.
I think that fundamentally the size of a human being doesn't matter. It's what that person does with their life. It's how they use their minds.
Yeah.
It's how we relate to other human beings. That's what matters. And you know, size, like all these other labels, is
Look at
just
that.
I mean, that image on the right is just got to be faked.
Fake as can be.
I'm sorry. It's just got to be faked.
Call it
And
out.
I'm sorry. It's faked. That's the trouble. I mean, the internet is a blessing and a curse.
It's dangerous.
It's a poisoned chalice.
It lies
It gives
so
us
much.
it gives us fantastic gifts of sharing knowledge and information, but it's full of bullshit and full of lies and full of nonsense. So I think it's great to have the internet there, but we have to be very discerning, and we have to look to what is the source of this, and is the source of this a person that I would believe if that person spoke to me face to face? We need to ask ourselves that question. Photographs are so easily manipulated and mocked up.
So why do archaeologists try to combat all the research and all the fact that you found in your process and all the things that you've done?
Well, in a way, it's the other way. It's the other way round, because the view of history and of prehistory that we receive almost with our mother's milk, and that is taught to us while we're in school, and that is taught to us in university, and that the vast majority of the media buy into, is the view that has been prepared and presented by archaeologists and historians, that they dominate the field in this area. And so I'm actually coming back at them and saying, I think there are anomalies, I think there are problems that your narrative doesn't explain, particularly regarding the origins of civilization. There are anomalies that your narrative doesn't explain, and let's see if there's another narrative that can be there. Now, if things were different, archaeologists and historians would say, well, perhaps this is an interesting idea. Let's look at it. But what they do instead is respond by trying to destroy the idea. And often they respond by trying to destroy the idea in very lazy ways. So one of the laziest ways to destroy the idea is to brand me as a pseudoscientist or a pseudo-archaeologist. Well, the word pseudo means false.
Yes.
Okay, so they say this guy is a false archaeologist or a false scientist. But I never, ever claim to be a scientist or an archaeologist. And therefore I don't see, I don't see how I can be a false one. I'm a journalist, and I'm a true journalist. And that's what I do. But it's a very easy way to dismiss interest in my work, is just to say, oh, he's a pseudoscientist. And I have to say this, that is what is on Wikipedia. If somebody hears my name for the first time and think, oh, that might be interesting, the first place they're going to go is they're going to go to Wikipedia and they're going to see what Wikipedia says about Hancock. And Wikipedia basically trashes my work and says that Hancock is a pseudoscientist and promotes pseudoscientific theories, but never actually says what those are. Or engage. It's just an easy dismissal. Sometimes I'm accused of being a white supremacist. This is another very easy way. This is sort of woke culture, you know, which many of my critics there are
calling out the racists. You're calling out the racists.
I think I'm calling out the racists.
You are.
And
the archaeologists are.
yeah, there are a lot of racists. You know, that weighs heavy on their conscience, so they call me a racist. But these are ways of putting me down without actually engaging with my work. And there's been very little direct engagement with my work by archaeologists. It's rather, let's just get rid of this guy. And that's why this series on Netflix is a blessing for me, because, you know, there's the biggest television platform in the world, and they're putting my evidence out to millions and millions of people, and it's going to make it harder for archaeologists just to dismiss that.
Exactly.
And it opens the door for anybody who's curious and intelligent and willing to investigate for themselves.
If they investigate anything that you happen to put out there, they gotta change history. They gotta rewrite it.
They got to rewrite history,
And they don't want to do that.
No, they don't want to. They don't want to do that, and for understandable human nature reasons.
Egos.
Ego. They've invested their own careers in a particular model of the past. If that model is criticized, they take it as a personal criticism of them. And if that model were to be overthrown, then all their work would be for nothing. So a lot of people
kill
have.
for that. They'll kill for that.
They would kill for that. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a brutal thing, archaeology. It's not only me they attack each other all the time. It's like dealing with a pack of wolves.
Survival of the
Lying
fittest
to each other all
mentality.
day.
Say again?
Survival of the fittest mentality, kind of in that realm.
No crab, bringing out
survival
crabs.
of the boss. Basically the hierarchy of archaeology encourages young archaeologists to buy into the theories of older archaeologists, because if they don't, if they challenge those theories, then they're not going to get recognition, they're not going to get research funding, they're not going to get grants, and fundamentally they're not going to be able to do the work. So there's moral pressures in the discipline to conform and to fit with what the discipline says, this inevitably results in the criticism of my work. I'm very happy for my work to be criticized. Criticism is a good thing, and I'm very happy for that. What I'm not happy about is the lazy, idle way in which they just casually dismiss me as a pseudoscientist or a pseudo-archaeologist and use woke labels to try to diminish my impact further. I think they need to work harder if they're going to put this down, and that's why I celebrate the fact that Netflix took the risk of putting this series out there with my contrary views, which archaeologists despise, reject, and detest.
By any chance, there's a tribe of people off of, New Zealand? What's that island again? And they came from Africa. They've been there for what, I think 60,000 years on that island.
Yeah.
It's a black tribe. Some guy from one of the missionary guys, Jesus, praise the Lord, let me save you. And they threw spears, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
They killed that. You know that, right?
I do know
What's that all about?
Well, there are. I mean, for example, there's no doubt that human beings came first from Africa. This is a fact. Africa is the origin of the human story, and it's clear that there were many migrations out of Africa, going back actually millions of years if we take into account Homo erectus, and some of those migrations were 60 or 70,000 years ago. So the Australian Aborigines are a people who've been on the Australian landmass for 60 or 70,000 years, and that's no easy task. They had to get all the way from Africa. They had to cross the sea, and they ended up in Australia.
You know what's so crazy? They ended up way in Australia when they could just cross the sea and went to Paris.
Well, yes, but they did that as well. They did that as well. They went everywhere. It's just that Northern Europe during the Ice Age was a pretty unpleasant place to be. Half of it was covered with an ice cap that was at least a mile deep, or maybe 2 miles deep. It was very cold. It was very unpleasant, and it didn't support large populations. So people naturally tended to stay in southern areas rather than northern areas.
Think it's something under the North Pole?
Under the North Pole, probably not much because it's largely just sea ice. But
About the
under
South?
Antarctica, the South Pole, now that's an interesting proposition.
Yeah.
And again, it's another area which has not been studied by archaeology for two reasons. Firstly, because it's extremely expensive to go do archaeology in Antarctica, and secondly, because they're convinced they're not going to find anything there, that it's been ice covered for hundreds of millions of years. But Antarctica is a mass, it's a continent-sized land mass. It has solid ground under it. The ice sits on top of islands, huge islands. And I don't think that archaeologists have a right to claim that they've got the whole human story taped without taking Antarctica into account, without doing some work there. And the same goes for the Amazon rainforest. 5 million square kilometers, covered by dense canopy, old-growth rainforest, never really studied by archaeologists. And the tiny little bit of research that's being done now, the new imaging that's coming in from LiDAR work, which shows you what's under the canopy without destroying it, suggests that there are enormous discoveries to be made in the Amazon. Then the other really important place is the Sahara Desert, Africa again. 9 million square kilometers of Sahara Desert, which was green during the Ice Age and is desert now. Just because it's desert now doesn't mean it was always desert. And by and large, there's very little archaeology done in the Sahara Desert. So there's huge areas of our planet. The last one is the continental shelves covered by the 400-foot rise in sea level at the end of the Ice Age. You know, what's sitting underwater that we haven't found yet? Huge areas of our planet, the plain fact is, have never received the attention of archaeologists. So it's premature for archaeologists to say they've got the whole story.
Well, personally, I saw on television that 7 miles was the bottom of the ocean, 7 miles deep. And at the bottom of the ocean, 7 miles, there's another giant black hole, but nothing could pierce it. You can't go in it.
I haven't come across that, but it sounds intriguing.
Oh, it is. The bottom of the floor, a big black hole, can't penetrate, so dense.
Well, the truth is just that we don't know exactly who or what we are. We don't know who or what our planet is either. I mean, we just scratch the surface of the skin of our planet, of the crust of the Earth, and not really the inner layers. There's all kinds of theories about what it is, but no facts.
Kind of like the Mountain of Enlightenment when you guys, in your show, you
In
guys
Indonesia.
you guys dug, and then you had, I don't want to get it wrong, but it was like certain years
Yes.
of soil.
So this is a site called Gunung Padang in Indonesia. And in the particular part of Java, they speak a language called Sundanese. And in the Sundanese language, Gunung Padang means mountain of light or mountain of enlightenment. It doesn't mean that in the Indonesian language. It means mountain field in the Indonesian language. But in the Sundanese language, there it is.
Yeah.
It means mountain of enlightenment. And this site was ignored for a very long time. Weirdly, it was thought to be totally natural, although how something like that could be natural beats me. And then a little bit of investigation was done, digging very shallowly. They found evidence of people maybe 1,000+ years ago. But then they went deeper. They found evidence that humans had been there 5,000 years ago. Then they went deeper still, and evidence of human beings 24,000 years ago. And evidence of large man-made chambers
I remember that, yeah.
inside this mound.
Amazing.
And we have a fantastic Indonesian geologist, Danny Hilman Natwijaya, who's been doing this research. He's a leading geologist, top specialist in his field, and he's convinced that we're dealing with a 24,000-year-old monument, which was built at the time when the world looked very different. During the Ice Age, when sea level was 400 feet higher than it is today, you didn't have the Malaysian Peninsula, you didn't have the Indonesian islands. They were all joined in one huge landmass, and this was part of the highland of that landmass. And then the sea levels rose, and most of it got submerged beneath the ocean. But structures like this have survived because they were never covered by the ocean. And the evidence suggests that they're the work of an unrecognized civilization of prehistory.
Yeah, I love that episode.
What's DeGrasse Tyson talking about?
Well, whatever DeGrasse Tyson talks about, you can be sure it's endorsed by the mainstream.
Hell yeah. He looks like a company man.
Yeah,
He talks like a company man.
he's a company man. He's a very good talker, quite entertaining, but he never goes against the trend. He's always supporting what the mainstream view is, rather than challenging it in any ways. And I think it's important. It's important to challenge mainstream views. They shouldn't be allowed to have a monopoly on our understanding of the past and our understanding of who and what we are.
Well, we really appreciate you because we need someone like you to tell these foolish people they need to rewrite history.
I see down there, just underneath deGrasse Tyson, there's another passage, thoughts on flat Earth conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
Conspiracy
isn't that
theories in
something?
general. I have to say, the Earth is not flat. We live on this huge ball in space, definitely. I just have no doubt about that. It's an unnecessary thing. Why does the Earth need to be flat? Is it what is it? Even if it was flat, who cares? I mean, we're here we're here to live our lives and hopefully to live them well. But the Earth is not flat, and the ancients knew this. The ancients knew this forever. The ancient Egyptians knew this. Everybody knows that the Earth is not flat. You just need to stand on a cliff and look at a distant ocean horizon and see a ship come towards you, and you'll see the funnel of the ship first before you see the deck of the ship. That's because it's coming around a curved horizon. Yet that conspiracy theory survives. So this is part of the way that my work gets pissed on by archaeologists, is that they lump me together with all kinds of theories that I don't buy into. I don't buy into the flat Earth theory. I don't need aliens in order to explain the mysteries of our past.
Yeah.
The simplest, clearest explanation is that there's been a forgotten episode in human history, and we have lost part of our story. We're a species with amnesia, and that's the argument that I've been trying to put forward to explain things that are not explained by the mainstream narrative. We're looking at the Piri Reis map here, one bit up, and that's an interesting map, the Piri Reis map. And we have an episode in Ancient Apocalypse that touches on the mysteries of the Piri Reis map. In this frame, it's actually depicted on its side, but if you were to turn it vertically, you will see that it's showing a bit of North America and South America, and it goes on down to Antarctica. Now, we went to the island of Bimini in the Grand Bahama Banks, right off Florida. It's about 50 miles east of Miami. And we dived at Bimini because there is this structure underwater at Bimini that's known as the Bimini Road. And it's a classic megalithic structure. It's blocks of stone, 10 to 20 tons each, which are laid out in a very regular pattern on the seabed and which were covered by rising sea levels at the end of the Ice Age. If we take the map on its side that's occupying the main frame there, and you'll see at the left-hand side of that map, there's an island. If you could bring the cursor down onto it, just keep going down. Keep going down. That big island there, that big island occupies the place where the Grand Bahama Banks are. And that big island didn't exist in 1513 when Piri Reis drew the map. Doesn't exist today, but did exist during the Ice Age. And he shows it remarkably accurate, the right size. And what is pictured in the middle of it looks very much like an image of the Bimini Road, which is now underwater. So we went to Bimini, we investigated the Bimini Road. I think that's in probably episode 3 of the series, or maybe episode 4. Then we looked at the implications for ancient maps, because Piri Reis is a Turkish admiral. He did not just draw that map out of nowhere. He drew that map in 1513, but he tells us in his own handwriting on the map that it was based on more than 20 older source maps. And he suggests that those older maps were associated in some way with Alexander the Great. The implication is that they may have come out of the lost library of Alexandria, which was a treasure house of ancient wisdom until it was destroyed. It's his reliance. There's the Bimini Road. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to dive. I've done a lot of diving, but that's a very unchallenging dive because it's only about 20 feet deep, and it's lovely warm water. And at the bottom of it, you have this anomaly, which again, archaeologists, because they don't like the idea that our ancestors were creating something like this during the Ice Age, they say, oh, it's entirely natural. That's not the Bimini Road that we're looking at there, whatever that is. But the Bimini Road is these huge pillow-shaped megalithic slabs. That's the Bimini Road. Archaeologists want it to be natural and say that it's just naturally formed beach rock. But I've seen beach rock all over the world,
Yeah.
above and underwater, and none of it looks like this. And I took along as a diving buddy Michael Haley, who's a marine biologist who's done even more diving than I have around the world. And he also agreed that he's never seen anything like this. And furthermore, we found that these blocks are propped up on little stones in some cases, though they were using the stones to level the feature out where there was a slope underneath. So I'm confident it's man-made, but whether or not it's man-made, the fact that it appears on that map, drawn in 1513, based on maps that came from the Library of Alexandria, raises huge other questions. And the Pinkerton map, it's worth making a point about that, the Pinkerton world map, because let's find the bit that shows the southern hemisphere and shows us, keep going down. We want to see the view from the southern hemisphere. There it is. There it is. This is the Pinkerton world map. And I believe it was drawn in around 1813. And in this case, it did not rely on ancient source maps. It was because by 1813, there was a lot of navigation and we had explored most of the world. So this map was based on the latest navigational and exploration knowledge in 2013. But obviously, if you look at it, something big is missing from the picture. And that big something that's missing from the picture is Antarctica. It's not there. And the reason it's not there is because this was an honest map. It was based on what they knew in 1813. So the weird point is that Antarctica then does appear, it does appear on much older maps. If you search Orontius Phineus world map, for example, Orontaeus, and Phineus, Finnaeus, Orontius Phineus world
Can I
map.
spell this?
That'll probably find it. That'll probably find it. Go to the second row, shift over to the right, third from the right. There, at the tip of South America and at the tip of South Africa is Antarctica.
Yeah.
And that's on a map drawn in 1534 by Orontius Phineus, 300 years before the Pinkerton map didn't know that Antarctica was there. And how does he know it's there? Because it's based on older source maps, now lost. Even the Piri Reis map is only a fragment. The rest of that map is lost as well. We only got a little bit of the Piri Reis map. So maps get lost all the time.